I'm Christopher Assaro, president of Holt Construction. I'm proud to announce that the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey, in partnership with American Airlines, URW Airports, has announced a $125 million commercial redevelopment of JFK's Terminal 8. As the project's construction partner, Holt Construction is pleased to partner with URW to introduce our new information and technical assistance program designed to connect you to opportunities available across the 24-month redevelopment of Terminal 8, all part of the Port Authority's $19 billion airport redevelopment program that is transforming New York's airport system. Working with our partners at the Port Authority, American Airlines, URW, and Phoenix Infrastructure, we have designed a special series of programs that will help you learn more about the project, the business and contracting opportunities that are right for your company, and how your business can participate. Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to partnering together.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to our session on understanding insurance. Insurance, especially construction insurance, can be daunting. This session will cover what types of coverages are required for the Terminal 8 project. It will also review common exclusions and how a reduced premium may impact your coverage. Hear from one of the area's leading construction insurance professionals and get all your insurance-related questions answered. Now let's meet our panelists.
Hi, my name is Robert DiBiase. I am Executive Vice President and National Director for Construction Services here in New York for Alliant.
Hi, I'm Nikki Marcano. I'm the Contracts Manager with Holt Construction.
Wonderful. So now let's start with some insurance questions related to Holt and the T8 project. So Nikki, what are the specific types of insurance coverages that are mandatory for the Terminal 8 project?
Sure. So we will require general liability, workers' comp, auto, and umbrella liability insurance coverages.
Great. And how much coverage for each type do contractors need to carry?
Sure. So we will require 1 over 2 million for a GL, 5 million for umbrella, 1 million for auto, 1 million for workers' comp, which is the statutory limit in New York.
Great. And when does Holt require COIs to be submitted?
Well, typically when we vet the subs at the pre-qual stage, we will request their COI and the policy documents. We also require a project-specific insurance certificate upon award.
Okay, great. And can you tell us a little bit about Holt's insurance requirements for the pre-qualification process?
Sure. So we'll look to see that you have the required coverages as stated before. We'll ask for a sample COI. We'll ask to see your policies, and we'll have your broker complete a COI packet. And Rob DiBiase can, touch on that a little bit more in his portion.
Yeah, I can add to that now. The key for us with regard to the pre-qualification for subcontract is very simple. Provide a standard sample certificate of insurance and your general liability, workers' compensation, umbrella, and auto policies. New York is very difficult with regard to coverages, especially for labor law. So we need to make sure that your general liability, umbrella liability policies will provide coverage for labor law, third-party action over covers. And that's the reason we're asking for those policies.
Wonderful. Okay, Rob, so let's start with the basics. What is a certificate of insurance, aka a COI?
A certificate of insurance, very straightforward. It's an evidence of coverage that you have in place at any time and moment. So today, you have a certificate of insurance issued that shows your effective date, expiration date, your carrier, your limits of coverage, and who the certificate holder is. So for example, if it were Holt Construction would be listed as the certificate holder. That gives the person that is in contract with you at least a starting point to understand what coverages you have in place as a subcontractor.
Great. And who's protected under an insurance policy?
An insurance policy, for example, well, I'll start with a general liability and an umbrella liability. Those are third-party liability policies. And what I mean by that is it covers your work and potential injuries to third parties, people other than yourself. So if a beam falls or something were to fall at a job site and hit somebody, there's property damage or bodily injury to others that are covered under the general liability policy. Workers' compensation policy is injury to you as the employee. So any employee that gets injured is covered under a workers' compensation policy.
Great. And how often does a subcontractor need to submit a COI to a general contractor?
The typical process for a COI or evidence of insurance would be annually for a pre-qualification. So typically Holt will do an annual pre-qual based on your renewal date of coverage. So if you renew January 1st, you would be getting a pre-qualification packet probably in the 60 days ahead of that, November, December of the prior year. When your insurance is renewed, you would submit a certificate of insurance for a pre-qual. The second time you'll have to provide a certificate of insurance is on contract award, because the specifics to the contract need to be highlighted and included on that certificate of insurance.
Great. Now this is one I hear a lot. What is a waiver of subrogation?
So a waiver of subrogation is the easiest way to say it is you are, as a subcontractor, signing away the ability for someone to come back and seek damages from the general contractor's existing policy. Typically, a waiver of subrogation happens mostly on builder's risk property coverages when and if they can't determine who is at fault. So I'll give an example. A pipe bursts on a job site and floods the floors. We don't know how the pipe burst. We don't know who burst the pipe. We don't know any of the extent of it. There wasn't somebody there when it happened. The insurance policy is going to pay. Typically, an insurance policy then subrogates to the responsible party. A waiver of subrogation basically says, sorry, Mr. Insurance Company, you're paying, nobody else is paying, because we can't really figure out who it is. We don't want to get into a legal battle between 2 or 3 or 4 different insurance companies and spend money. You're paying the policy, you're paying the loss, and we move on from there. So a waiver of subrogation actually helps simplify the process with regard to claims being paid.
Okay, great. What does a subcontractor do if they don't have the required insurance that is necessary for the job?
Great question. So Holt is very open-minded and really wants to be helpful to any and all subcontractors to try to do business with us. And what I mean by that is, if you have a general liability policy and you don't have an umbrella policy, what I would ask or ask you to do when you submit your pre-qual is just write a letter to Holt saying, we do not have an umbrella at this time. If we are awarded a project with Holt, we understand we need to get an umbrella, and we'll do so at award. It allows you as a subcontractor to be user-friendly for Holt so that their estimators know exactly that you're willing to adhere to the coverages that are required. And at this time, we know that you don't have the coverage, so you can still be included to bid.
Wonderful. How is an insurance premium calculated?
Insurance premiums are calculated in a number of different ways. So for general liability, it's either sales revenue or payroll. So they take your sales and revenue, divide it by 1,000, multiply it by a rate, and that's your premium. There's an audit done each and every year, whether it be on payroll or sales, for general liability. Umbrellas are a percentage of the general liability as a percentage of premium, and are typically flat, meaning they are not auditable. There are general liability policies in this space that are auditable. So from time to time, you may, as a subcontractor, have an auditable umbrella policy similar to the general liability policy. Workers' compensation is a straight payroll audit. So they cap payrolls in the city of New York and the state of New York. So you would cap your payrolls. Don't quote me on the exact amount. It's somewhere around $1,350 per week for capped payrolls. And then that would be divided by per 100, and you would pay a rate by the per $100 for workers' compensation.
Wonderful. And how does an EMR affect a company's premium? And can a subcontractor affect their EMR in a positive direction?
This is really an interesting question, and I appreciate this question because EMR is experience modification rating. It's different for each class of business. So each type of contractor has a specific calculation based on their type of work, based on the premiums paid. An EMR is either negative or positive. So you have, and I'll call it a debit mod or a credit mod. So 1.0 is unity, meaning even. There's no additional charges or credits. If you're over 1, you have a debit mod, meaning you are charged additional cost or additional premium. So if your debit mod were 1.1, you would have a 10% charge on top of the manual rate premiums for insurance. So if insurance were $1, you'd pay $1.10. If your EMR is 0.9, instead of paying $1, you'd pay 90 cents. So there is a big advantage to be safe and having less workers' compensation losses. The one thing I will stress to everybody is EMR follows you on every job you're on. So if you're on an OSIP or a CSIP, your EMR follows you on that OSIP and CSIP work. So non-OSIP CSIP and OSIP CSIP work is included in the EMR on an annual basis.
That's extremely helpful. Now, what about contractors that work in more than one state? Let's say New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania. Is the EMR different per state?
Yes, it is. This is the confusing part. So there used to be a combined EMR in the state of New York. Last year, 2 years ago, 2022 was the last year where there was a combined EMR for New York, Connecticut, Pennsylvania. New Jersey has always had a separate EMR, so they did not participate in the NCCI, which is the National Compensation Council Information Bureau. That piece, New York went away with it. So now New York EMRs are separate and distinct from the NCCI. So every state right now in the metro area has their own EMR.
Got it. And what is the basic insurance a subcontractor should carry? What's best practices on that?
It's hard to say best practices. What I say is it's really dependent upon the type of work you're doing. So any subcontractor that is working at some sort of elevation, gravity related issues. So if you're working above head, if you're working below ground, if you're working on roofs, if you're working on the outside of buildings or exterior buildings, you should carry a higher umbrella limit than those that are working on the interior pieces, an insulation contractor, a painting contractor, things like that. So we tend as a broker to give different umbrella recommendations based on the type of work and based on the risks associated with that work. So the standard in New York is typically $2 million per occurrence, $4 million general liability. Holt is $1 million, $2 million because we do work outside of New York. So we have softened the requirement of the standard 2-4 in GL. And then typically $5 million or $10 million or $25 million umbrella. So a plumbing contractor, I would say, is probably somewhere between 5 or 10 million, depending upon the type of work they're doing. If you're a roofing contractor, I would tell you 10 million would be your minimum. Anybody that's involved with excavation, foundation, concrete, steel would be at a minimum $10 million of coverage. So it really is dependent upon a subcontractor. And I'd be happy to have conversations individually with people if they had questions on that. Certainly bring those up in the question and answer session, and I'll be happy to give you some guidance there.
Thank you for that. How should one choose their insurance company? What should they look for?
Well, price is always the determining factor, right? Everybody wants the least expensive product. And I say, yes, we want the least expensive product that affords us the proper coverage. So there's two pieces to it. You can buy an insurance policy and pay $1. It may not provide any coverage. So you've wasted your $1. You've put yourself in a problem area where your business could be at risk. What you need to really start with is buy from insurance companies that are selling insurance in New York specific to construction. Number one. Number two, you have to look at the rating of the carrier. So you want A+ being the top tier. A+ 15 would be the highest rated carrier. From Holt's requirements, just to understand you where you could go from A+ 15 and down. Our requirements are A-8 as a minimum. So there's A+, there's A-, so 2 steps down from the top, and then 15 down to 8. So financially, the credibility or the credit worthiness of a carrier starts at 15 from a size perspective financially, down to 1. We never want to be 1. So 7 or 8 and above is really where we want to go with regard to that.
How do you find out what someone's rating is?
You can look online. So if you plugged in a Google search or a search engine of the name of the insurance company and their AM Best rating, it will pop up on your screen what they are. Insurance companies have many different names, so you understand. So it does get confusing. So Travelers, for example, is Travelers, but they also have other names that you may see on an insurance policy. CNA, for example, has Transportation Insurance Company. It's an affiliated company of CNA, but it will still hold CNA's name. So that's the one thing I would say is if you put in the name that's on the certificate of insurance or on your policy, it will show on the AM Best rating for them and tell you if it's a subsidiary company of a larger organization.
Okay, wonderful. And can you outline the typical claims process for construction insurance, and how can project managers ensure a smooth and efficient claims resolution?
That's a very, very difficult question to answer on something like this, but I'll do my best to give you the basics of it. So a claims process in New York is very, very elongated. It could last from 1 month to 8 years. I don't want to belabor that, but there is drawn out circumstances in the state of New York that allow laws or claims to be processed. An accident could happen today. A claim doesn't have to be filed for a specific amount of time. It could be 12 months, 14 months, 24 months, 36 months. So the process for a claim, although it may have happened today, may not start for 3 years from now. So it's very difficult when you're on a job, when there's an accident that happens, for stability to return to a job site. So if there's a catastrophic event at a job site, the key from our perspective as the broker is to make sure that there's clear and concise communication between the subcontractor and the general contractor on the job. And if there's an issue that happens on your job, an incident should be reported. No matter how small they are, they should be reported to the project management team for the general contractor. Reason being is we want to be able to open a file and decide if we want to do some sort of due diligence or investigation work at the day of the incident, rather than 3 years from now when memories are not so good, when people aren't around, the job is finished, there's not everything clear and concise on the job site for us to get pictures and the like. So incident reporting is the best part of our subcontractors' job to help there be smooth and efficient claim resolution. So don't be afraid to report an incident. It's important. No matter how small it is, it's important to just let us know that it happened. And then we can allow the claim experts to make a decision if that has to be reviewed now, or if we can just put it in a box and know that it could come back to haunt us 2 or 3 years from now. I hope that's some sort of clarification for you. The second piece I would say is on the resolution side, I would just urge anyone, if you're involved in a claim, if you're a witness to a claim, cooperate and just answer emails or phone calls when you're called upon to answer those. It does help the process go a lot smoother. We want to make sure that the injured person is helped and taken care of. If we're not getting answers, it's hard to do that without becoming a little bit of a litigious situation with lawyers and the like. We want to eliminate the legal piece of it and really just get the injured worker back to work as quickly and as efficiently as possible.
Wonderful. That was great. So thank you so much, Rob and Nikki, for this overview on insurance. And now we're going to turn it over to some live Q&A questions. Hello, everyone, and welcome welcome to our live Q&A with Nikki and Robert. So we're going to jump right into questions. So this first one, Robert, I will throw to you. What do the various insurance policies like general liability, workers' comp, umbrella cover?
So we touched on it earlier, but just to kind of reiterate, general liability and umbrella liability are typical third party. So bodily injury, property damage to others. Workers' compensation is injury to your employees. Umbrella liability sits over umbrella liability sits over workers' compensation as well. Usually in all states, New York is a little different, that employer's liability is unlimited, so you do not need umbrella to sit over the workers' compensation in New York in most circumstances.
Great, thank you. Nikki, I'll throw the second one to you. Beyond general liability, workers' comp, and umbrella, what other insurance and policies do subcontractors need?
They should have auto. That's one piece that we look to have. And they may need professional liability depending on their scope of work.
Okay, great. Okay, Nikki, I'll throw this one to you too. If I don't meet Holt's insurance requirements, can I still pre-qualify and bid on projects?
Yeah, they definitely should. Let us see what you have. And Rob DiBiase, he will look at it for us as well. And we'll see if we can, get them across the finish line.
Great. Rob, is there a specific type of insurance that is required to work in airports?
For the work that's done by Holt, there is not any specific type of insurance for airport work. Typically, the work is not done on the tarmacs and the like, where we would need some sort of airport liability insurance. So no, the answer is no there. There could be some circumstances where you may be on the tarmac or doing work outside of the interiors of these buildings, and then there may be some adjustments made, but we would certainly articulate that and tell subcontractors ahead of time.
Yeah, we would definitely let you know in the bidding process if there was some kind of insurance that was above and beyond, so you can, take that into account when you're bidding. Okay, Rob, I got one about EMRs. So what do the different EMR ratings mean? How do I know if I have a good rating? And if my rating is high, does that disqualify me with becoming pre-qualified?
Okay, so EMR 1.0, like I spoke to earlier, is kind of unity. That means that's the average. 1.0 and below would be considered a very good EMR. A 1.0 and above would be a bad EMR. What I would say is Holt has not had any preconceived notions as it pertains to EMR and eliminating people from bidding. So a bad EMR, I'll just throw out a number, 1.25 would be quote unquote a bad EMR. You'd have a 25% debit mod. You'd have some issues with some maybe activity and claims on the workers' comp. What we'd like to do is understand what happened, speak to you about it, and then come up with a plan from a safety perspective when you're working for Holt to be a little bit more attentive to some of those issues that you may have had in the past and work with you. But from my perspective, it's all about communication. So if you've got a bad EMR, don't be afraid to speak about that ahead of time and talk to our folks, and we'll try to find a way to shepherd you along.
Great. And can you explain the difference between OSIP and CSIP?
Sure. An OSIP is an owner-controlled insurance program, and a CSIP is a contractor-controlled insurance program. The main difference is who the sponsor is. So who is the person that's managing or handling the insurance. So as an example, if Holt had a CSIP, Holt would be the managing, for lack of a better word, managing partner of that CSIP or that insurance program. If it were the Port Authority in New York and New Jersey, they would be managing it. So the owner or the contractor are the two deltas there as far as CSIPs are concerned or OSIPs are concerned.
Right. And for right now, as we know now, JFK T8 is not doing an OSIP program. Nikki, can you reiterate what our policy limits are again that we're looking for?
Yes, for general liability, we're looking for 1 million single over 2 million aggregate. We're looking for 1 million in auto, 5 million umbrella liability, and 1 million in workers' comp.
Great. Rob, can you recommend any insurance companies or brokers?
Well, Alliant is one of the largest construction insurance brokers in the space, so we would certainly be more than happy to help anyone that needs some guidance there. You know, when you look at insurance companies and carriers, you want stability. So I don't really recommend any one carrier per se. When I look at stability in the space, there are a number of bellwether companies that stay in New York construction for the long term. Travelers is certainly one of the bigger names that you'll know in that space. There are others in the space that have been here for a number of years. I would just say that the key, like I said earlier, is understanding the insurance companies, you know, is financially qualified, number one, and number two, affords you the proper coverages for your business. You know, New York is tricky. New York is a little difficult, so we want to make sure that the carriers are there for the long haul. So Travelers or Star Insurance, someone like that, they've been in the space, they understand construction, they're not easily bouncing in and out of the marketplace of New York. So if they have a number of claims, they're not going to say, oh, we don't want to be in New York anymore, we're going to cancel your insurance. You want that stability. So I don't want to give any one carrier. There are a number of carriers, whether, you know, small or large, that are available to us in this space, but we just got to make sure that we get the ones that have the proper coverage for construction.
Great. Okay, another one for you, Rob. I have an MEP design engineering firm. I get asked the EMR question a lot. Is this applicable for my type of work?
Yes and no. So why I say yes and no is it depends on, you say you're doing MEP design work, so that would lend me believe that you're an architect or an engineer of some sort. So if you're not going to be on the job site, if you're just going to be drawing plans, your EMR may not be as applicable than an MEP that, you know, a contractor self-performing the work. So it really is dependent upon your situation. I would just tell you again, with regard to Holt, I use this as our understanding is just let us know what the EMR is. If there's an issue with the EMR, we're going to talk to you about it. So I would not be worried about sharing that data. It is public information. So if you plugged in the name of your organization or your company, the EMR for your company is readily available on many websites. So you can get that data. So it's not like you're hiding anything by not giving the EMR. So I would always be upfront about it.
Great. How can we learn about projects that Holt has open for bidding? So for that, I would say you definitely want to get pre-qualified with us, because then you'll automatically be in the estimator's queue when they're looking for different trades. Other than that, you could reach out to our estimating department and they can keep you up to date on that. How do we know if our insurance has been accepted during the pre-qual process? I could take that. Basically, if we have any issues with it, we'll send it back to you with a revision asking for clarification or more information. Other than that, if you get qualified, that means your insurance is good. If we ask for clarification, then we need some more information from you. Okay, Rob, auto insurance is included in my umbrella insurance. Do I need a separate policy for auto as well?
I'm a little confused by the question. So when you say auto insurance is covered by my umbrella, you need automobile liability insurance first. There's no coverage on an umbrella until there's an underlying policy. So umbrella liability sits over the existing primary policy. So as an example, if you have an automobile liability policy, let's just use State Farm as an example, that $1 million State Farm policy sits first, and then the umbrella sits above State Farm. Umbrellas don't sit below State Farm, so you need an auto liability policy before it will sit, an umbrella will sit over it. I hope that clears the question, but yeah. If you have a follow-up, certainly send a text.
Great. And Nikki, are insurances the insurance that we need different for material only vendors versus a regular subcontractor?
Yeah, the same. The requirements are the same for both.
Okay, great.
I will add to that. Can I add to that?
Go for it.
So if you're a vendor supplier, just make sure you articulate that to us in the pre-qualification. So the confusing part for us is when we're doing the pre-qualification, we are looking at each and every one of these as if you're a contractor. So if you are a vendor supplier, it helps when you're filling out your pre-qual in the general requirements to say vendor supplier only, because there will help us, get to the avenue that makes sense. What I will say is vendor suppliers sometimes don't need to submit or don't need to have all the coverages. We will communicate that to you in your pre-qualification. So send us what you have, again, back to what we said at the beginning, and then we will come back to you, and if there's adjustments that need to be made or changes or modifications, we will articulate that back to you. We will speak to you about it.
Okay, great. Now someone's saying they're pre-qualified with us, but they haven't received any opportunities to bid. So for that, for now, I would tell you, reach out to our contracts department, contracts@holtcc.com, and I'll get you guys in touch with the estimating department, and we will get that sorted out to make sure you are getting some bids to work on. Okay, I think that is all of our questions that we have. So thank you, Rob and Nikki. We really appreciate it. Next week, our session, same day, same time, is going to be on what to do if you have not pre-qualified. So stay tuned for that. And thank you, everyone, once again.